I want to talk about this Asia Times article that I saw. It's titled, "Defending Taiwan, Think Globally and Look Up." While US would likely lose a conflict confined to Taiwan, its prospects would improve considerably by hitting China's vulnerable supply lines. And when I was first shown this article, somebody shared it with me, I thought immediately of the 2016 Rand Corporation paper, this one right here, War with China, Thinking Through the Unthinkable. And what was this about? This was about preparing for a limited conventional conflict with China, confined to fighting China's Navy and its Air Force along the coast and out at sea, avoiding a direct war with mainland China. They're acknowledging that China is not a military threat to the rest of the globe. It does not even have the ability to retaliate against the US, the continental US, short of a nuclear exchange, which they don't think China would resort to if the US was just sinking ships and shooting down warplanes. They don't think it would escalate to a nuclear exchange. And they figure that even though they might not be able to defeat China's military, they could keep a destructive conflict going long enough to disrupt shipping. And by disrupting shipping, they can cripple China's economy. People point out that America is very dependent on China's economy, and if they damage China's economy, they will damage themselves. They've thought about that. That was the whole purpose of the trade war and decoupling and moving Taiwanese chip manufacturing to Arizona and diversifying its trade with all of these other countries. They're in the process of tying off this limb, its economic dependence on China, before cutting it off. And they know it's going to be painful, but you have to think about what is at stake here from America's point of view. A non-white nation is about to surpass them irreversibly. Once China surpasses the US, there will be nothing the US will ever be able to do to bring things back in its favor. And so what would they do in order to stop China from surpassing them? My guess is anything. They talk about the US and Chinese military. And then down here they say if it's just a fight between the Americans and the Chinese and it takes place right around Taiwan, the Americans will have a hard time. And it's true. It's just a matter of proximity. Taiwan is right off the coast of mainland China, and China's entire military is based in China. It's not spread all over the world like America's military, but that's where this other strategy comes into play. However, expand the battlefield, say, to include the entire globe, and the United States prospects improve considerably. That's because the US has spread its military out all over the globe. It could target shipping anywhere in the world, not necessarily anywhere near where China's shores are. So they could attack ships that are very far away from mainland China on the way to markets or on their way back from picking up raw materials or hydrocarbons. They don't even necessarily need to sink these ships. They could impound them like they've been trying to do to Iran. The author is claiming that China does not produce enough food to feed itself, nor does it have enough energy or natural resources to power its economy. That's why the Chinese build up Brazilian and Ukrainian farmland, Australian milk companies, and American pork producers. And the same goes for Chinese oil concessions in Iran, Iraq, and Venezuela, and mines in Africa and South America. China not only depends on seamless and long supply lines to import commodities and raw materials, but it also depends on the same supply lines to export manufactured products that earn vital foreign exchange and keep people employed and the economy humming. If the Americans and their allies and partners expand the battlefield and cut off China from its overseas assets, as one Western expert puts it, without these commodities arriving in China from around the world, the China we know and the Chinese know will not exist. It'll be 1.4 billion persons desperate for food, energy, commodities, natural resources. And we've watched the US do this to countries like Iraq. They starved to death 500,000 children. That was before they invaded and killed 1 million people. They are doing this to Venezuela. Right now, they're trying to starve the people to death, starve them into submission. They've done this to Cuba for decades. They destroyed Syria in a proxy war, and now they're trying to starve and freeze everyone to death in Syria. And so this would just be doing that, but to a nation of 1.4 billion people. And again, people have to understand that it sounds extreme, but then again, the U.S. sees itself in an extreme situation, a non-white nation surpassing them irreversibly if they don't do this now. So if the U.S. musters the fortitude needed to impound or sink Chinese shipping and clamp down on air transport in and out of China, the Chinese Communist Party will be in dire straits. They're also talking about how China lacks power projection. This is the ultimate irony here, not only in this article, but also in the Rand Corporation paper. They're admitting that China does not have its military spread out all over the world, and it lacks the capability to carry out military aggression against other countries. Its military is configured solely for national defense. And just think about it, it's the US claiming China is this big threat, and this is why they need to work their way up to this conflict, to try to justify it, to justify executing these plans that you are now constantly seeing in the news and in policy circles. They're saying China is this huge threat, but when you actually read the details of these papers and articles and op-eds, they're talking about how China does not even have the ability to carry out military aggression. Their military is simply not configured for it. America's military is perfectly configured for it and is poised to crack down on Chinese shipping in air and by sea. Back to the Rand Corporation paper from 2016, they're talking about how both economies would be hurt, but China's economy would be hurt more. 25 to 35% reduction in GDP versus 5 to 10% for the US GDP. They're talking about how economic turmoil could stir up resentment inside of China. And they also talk about all of these various separatist movements that we know the US is sponsoring. This would be a window of opportunity for them to activate and start carrying out violence. I just wanted to bring attention to this article. I am seeing this more and more often as we get closer to whatever it is the US is getting ready to do. The Uyghur genocide is the WMD lie of our time, and they are using this for a very specific thing that they are building up to. And it's not just for sanctions, and it's not just to ruin the Olympics. Ruining the Olympics is leading up to something. This issue with Taiwan is leading up to something. These provocations in the South China Sea, this is leading to something. All of this, when you add it together, is leading up to this conflict. If you thought this video was useful, please like and share it. Think about subscribing. It's free to do and it helps the channel grow. I have a website, newatlas.report. Please bookmark it and share it with others. All of my work can be found and followed there. There are no ads. There is no paywall. There never will be. I'm also back on Twitter for the time being. You can find and follow my work there at Brian_Berletic. Check the video description for the link to this article. Read through the entire article. There's a lot more stuff in there that I didn't go over. And also the Rand Corporation paper. Read through that, especially page 14. The non-military factors. This is what the US is planning on. This is how they plan on winning, by focusing on those non-military factors. In the video description, there are also ways to help support my work. To everyone who has been, whether it's through Patreon month to month or one-time donations, or even if you're just helping share my work with others, I could not do this work without that support. So thank you. And as always, thank you for watching.